Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Myers. I'm the founder and medical director of Austin Ultra Health. Today I want to talk to you about an important topic, a topic that really affects each and every one of us. If you eat food, this topic affects you. I want to talk about genetically modified organisms, or GMO foods. There's a recent study that just came out from France that showed that rats fed a genetically modified corn diet. Only 30% of the diet was genetically modified corn for 2 years. The rats fed this diet. The female rats developed cancer and died prematurely at a rate of 70% versus 20% of the protocol or the standard rats that were not fed genetically modified food. So the study has come out and it's being called the first really long-term study on genetically modified foods. Now you might think, how is it that we have these foods in the United States and there haven't really been any long-term studies? Well, Monsanto, who has actually developed these foods, the government told them that they could do their own studies. And many of the studies that they did were only done for 3 months or less. So this is a really shocking study that has come out. And in fact, a lot of the UK is, they actually do not grow genetically modified food, but they allow it to be imported. And they are now talking about no longer having it be imported. But we here in the United States don't have that luxury. We are getting genetically modified foods and in many cases completely unaware of it because it is currently not labeled. In studies and polls out there, they're showing that 90% of people polled would want their food labeled and would want to know that it's genetically modified. So my guess is many of you are out there and don't even know anything about this and are currently eating genetically modified foods and completely unaware of it. I know when I go to a restaurant, when I eat conventional beef or chicken in a restaurant, it's been fed genetically modified feed of corn and soy. So I'm really rethinking my eating out any longer after this study has come out. So what's going on right now in California is on November 6th, they are trying to pass a proposition. It's called Proposition 37 to get genetically modified foods labeled. Now, Monsanto and many of the large companies that use genetically modified foods are spending a lot of money to defeat this proposition. Currently, it's stated that $34 million has been fed into advertising to not have this proposition passed, as opposed to those supporters of Proposition 37 that have only donated $4 million. So $4 million compared to $34 million is quite significant. We at Austin Ultra Health made a donation to support Proposition 37, and I encourage you to do the same. I will give you some resources at the end of this video where you can do that. But right now I just wanted to educate you a little from what I've learned recently about genetically modified foods so that you can just be more informed and make better decisions for yourself and for your family. 80% of the corn and soy in the United States is genetically modified. And so you might think like myself, I don't eat corn or soy, but as I mentioned earlier, I do eat meat, chicken and beef, and typically I purchase that and make sure that it's 100% organic, but I do like to go out and have dinner with friends, and many restaurants do not carry organic meats, and so I'm getting, genetically modified foods through the animal protein that I'm ingesting. And so this has been real eye-opening for me. Let's go through the list of what currently is genetically modified, and that is, as I mentioned, soy, corn. So when you're thinking about these things, you got to think about soy lecithin, which is in a lot of packaged foods. I know I love organic dark chocolate bars, and I have to look very hard to find one that doesn't have soy lecithin in it. So that's a big red flag when you're looking. Corn, as I mentioned, of course, we don't ever advocate high fructose corn syrup, but just know that that's a derivative of corn, and so if you are eating anything with that in it, that it would be genetically modified. Canola oil or rapeseed oil is another name for it. That just inherently is genetically modified in order to have made it. Also, If you're eating, as I mentioned before, meat or dairy products that are conventional, those animals could have been or likely have been fed genetically modified foods and then also given, growth hormone and things like that. So we would want to avoid those. And then cotton, and what comes from that is cottonseed oil. And so that's also found in a lot of packaged products. So even when you're going into Whole Foods and you're buying things labeled as organic, you need to make sure that they are in fact 100% organic, because the laws state that up to 30%, yes, let's talk about that again, 30% of genetically modified foods can be in something labeled organic. So you need to make sure it is 100% organic. So let's let me back up 1 second. Also, papayas apparently are starting to be genetically modified, as well as I think it's on the ballot for alfalfa. And so a lot of animals also eat alfalfa in addition to the corn and soy. So let's talk about some things that you can do to avoid these foods. Obviously not eating corn or soy. And the theory is actually that perhaps there really isn't any safe corn or soy in the United States. It's all being cross-contaminated. That's a bit of a debate right now as to what is true about that. So avoiding the list that I just mentioned to you, the corn, the soy, the cottonseed, the dairy and meat products that are conventionally raised, as well as papaya and aspartame and canola oil. So those are all things that you want to avoid for yourself and your family. And then what else can you do? Make sure that you're buying 100% organic. Anything that is labeled 100% organic is not to be genetically modified or have any genetically modified products in it. So, but as I mentioned before, if it's just labeled organic or natural, at this point in time, it can contain genetically modified foods. So there are many things, even in our lovely Whole Foods grocery stores, that likely contain genetically modified foods, and just another reason to not eat anything in a package, as I always tell my patients. So if you're going to eat meats and dairy, beef, chicken, or any dairy, you want to also make sure that it's 100% organic, and with the beef that it's 100% grass-fed. A lot of cattle is grass-fed and then they're finished off with grain. So unless it says 100% grass-fed or 100% organic, all bets are off. It's not safe. We also, let's see, what was the rest of my list here? Look for foods that actually have a label on it that say that it does not contain genetically modified foods. Some companies have taken it, on their own to go ahead and put these labels on foods to, advocate for themselves and for their product that they don't contain genetically modified foods. So, and then of course, buying local, buying from your local farmers where you know are a trusted source, your local farmers markets, and then if you have the space, growing your own food. But that's a lot of times not feasible for many of us, particularly if you live in a city. So the final thing that I want to talk about is Proposition 37. So as I mentioned, if you live in California, I urge you to get out there and vote in favor of this. And if you know anybody that lives in California, really encourage them to do so. So this proposition is a little bit limited, but at least it's a first start. What this proposition is doing is trying to get Monsanto to label genetically modified foods. Now, there are a few loopholes still. If it is, as I mentioned, beef or chicken, and it is fed a genetically modified diet, it does not, even under Proposition 37, need to be labeled. And then any food for immediate consumption also would not need to be labeled. So that would be restaurants. And for me, I know those are my two probably, or the biggest place where I would personally be getting any of those. And as I mentioned, I'm really questioning my eating out, or if I do, it will just be a plain salad when I go. So those are two loopholes. And of course, labeling the foods is only, it's one step forward for sure. I think the thought process of the people who've proposed Proposition 37, in addition, is that once these foods are labeled, then consumers will realize that and will stop buying the foods. And of course, Monsanto is really about money and profits. And so as people stop buying these foods, they're hoping that then there will no longer be genetically modified foods. So certainly labeling them is not the answer. The answer is to, really educate the public and put a stop to Monsanto genetically modifying our food. But Proposition 37 is certainly a step in the right direction to at least get them labeled, because there are many, many people out there that when you just mention GMO, they don't even know what that is, much less being fully educated, even when they think that they're going into a store that is primarily organic foods and things like that, that there still could be genetically modified foods in those products that they're eating. So a couple of resources that I really like if you want to get out there and support Proposition 37 or any organizations that are taking a stand against this and supporting research on this are fooddemocracynow.org, as well as the Institute of Responsible Technology, so that's responsibletechnology.org, as well as if you're in California, it's California Right to Know, so it's carightoknow.org. So any one of those organizations, I urge you to get on their websites, make a donation if this is something that resonates with you, and most importantly, just be aware for yourself so that you can take action for yourself and for your children. There are a lot of other studies out there just talking about genetically modified foods with increased allergies, ADD, autism, leaky gut, digestive illnesses. So, and many physicians out there, I was recently watching a conference over the weekend called Seeds of Doubt, which was excellent. And another resource is Genetic Roulette, the movie, which is an awesome documentary about this topic. And there are quite a number of physicians that were interviewed on these films and in the conference that talked about their personal experiences with their patients and resolving a lot of their medical issues by getting them off genetically modified foods. So in my practice, it's not something that we traditionally talked about a lot, and we are making a big stance on this and really trying to educate everybody, and this video is one of the first steps in that. So I hope you pass it along to anybody that you think will be interested. And thanks for listening. If you want more information from me, I'm constantly updating my Facebook page with articles that I read regarding this subject, as well as all kinds of other subjects, health-related and functional medicine. So you can follow me on Twitter or on Facebook, and my address for both of those is just Amy Myers, MD. It's AMYMYERS, MD, and I'd love to hear from you. So if you have any comments or questions regarding this or want more information, please send me an email at web@austinultrahealth.com. Thanks so much.